Hey guys, welcome back. I have a previous machine we have had on the channel before, the John Deere 4105. I think I had it maybe a year or two ago, somewhere around there, and it was pretty much brand new. It was a very new tractor when I had it. I did some dirt maneuvering work with it. That's what I did a little bit this time. Had a big pile of dirt I had to move there. But if you remember, last time the tractor was practically brand new. I think it maybe had a little less than 100 hours on it, maybe 100 hours on it, somewhere around there. Now we're up to 432.8 hours on it. So definitely come up a few hours now, and I wanted to show you guys how it has held up, because a lot of you guys asked me on the previous video if it's still working okay, if any of the problems you pointed out have made themselves a little bit more known. So we're going to go ahead and do that. This machine is in a fleet, and a rental fleet at that, so it gets used and abused every day. And so even though it has 430 hours, I'd tack a whole bunch more on there. Because it is in a rental fleet, you have people that don't know how to operate it, so they're being a little hard on it. You have commercial operators which just use and abuse machines to wear it down. You know, it's not theirs, why take care of it, kind of thing. So yeah, so I wanted to give you a quick walk around of things that I pointed out in the last video and show you how they're doing. First of all, we'll start with the hood. Now, many of you guys know I'll show you in here. I have two littler garden tractors up here, and they both had that stupid plastic hood that John Deere's been using for years, and it just breaks off, snaps off. That one doesn't even have a hood anymore. It's really brittle material, and if you leave it in the sun, it disintegrates really fast. And you guys can see I've drift stitched some of it, try to prevent it from getting any worse. And so I did that. And you can see on here, that was my biggest concern, probably one of the reasons why I said I wouldn't buy this. But I wanted to show you guys that this hood has in fact held up a little bit better than I thought it would. Of course, there's probably people not dropping things on it, and it's not as near as old as those other tractors, and they use a different material in it now than they do. But the hood has held up. I don't see any cracking or fatiguing inside of it. The grill's been smashed in a bit, but that's beyond this, not to do with the hood. But the hood otherwise is held up. You can see the little crease mark there. I mean, looking around, I don't really see too much of an issue going on there. Moving on to these fenders. Same type of thing I was worried about, the plastic. They're very expensive to replace. I figured this would become an issue eventually. I mean, it does only have like roughly 500 hours on it, so it still is not too old, and I don't think a private operator would be as hard on it as a commercial fleet. But as you can see, there's no fracturing just yet, any of that kind of stuff. And the material is quite a bit different than what they used to put on it. It's kind of, it has a little bit more give to it. So and it doesn't feel like a crack. It feels like you can probably bend it. I mean, I can put all my weight on it. It doesn't try to crack or anything like that. So even though that hasn't festered to become an issue, or look like it'll become an issue, I still don't know. I mean, 500 hours in, it still looks okay. Still looks good. Scratching isn't too bad. But yeah, maybe if you live in a northern climate, this would probably help. But in the southern climate, I still think I would prefer the metal ones. That's just me. But I mean, I don't know if you guys can see in the video, but there are scratches and dings, and it hasn't been bent out of shape or anything like a metal one would. So I think that is something that can be ignored for now, becoming an issue. Let's see, the seat. I said last time, I still agree that this is a horrible design here. The seat sits way too far back for short operators, and the steering wheel doesn't tilt. So even if you're short, you can't lean back in the seat. You can't sit back here and drive really, and you it's very poor driving condition. So this hasn't, I mean, it's the same tractor, so it's not going to improve at all, but this is something to look out for if you're looking to buy one of these tractors. It's a very uncomfortable driving position. Maybe if they could have a mechanism where you could tilt the seat up just a tinge, that might help. Or tilt steering wheel. This obviously is a lower model tractor, so it doesn't have that. But the steering wheel, I mean, even for a tall operator, I think the steering wheel is way too high and way too forward. Okay, so the next biggest concern I had was with this loader. And this, I think the loader here shows the most, like, of any of the issues, I think this one has become the worst out of all of them. Obviously, if there's somebody's using this tractor, they're probably going to use it for the loader, and the loader is probably the most abused mechanism on the tractor, because you're going to be lifting, ramming things, trying to rip things out of the ground and stuff. So it's expected a little use. Some stuff I've noticed is you got an O-ring here. That's probably come out of the cylinder. That's one. Here's another blown O-ring right here too. I don't see anything over here. This one's got a blown O-ring, 3. So you got 3 blown O-rings. And this bucket mechanism, this frontal area, has become quite a bit sloppy, shall I say. First, you can see that these are like an indicator thing to see where your bucket is, because you can't really see it when it's up in front of you. This is worn into that quite a bit. You can see it moving up and down. It probably needs to be tighter here, but still it's worn down quite a bit. This thing's packed filled with grease, probably by the fleet, but a little bit of side-to-side motion, that isn't necessarily an issue. But down here, it's actually easier to see on this one, but I'll watch you guys. You can watch the side-to-side movement. That's quite a bit of slop for something that has 500 hours on it. You can see down there, and it's not like a smooth slide-to-slide. You can tell there's some bowing in the pins from use. And this company that I had this tractor from generally is pretty good about maintenance, like greasing things. So you can see I can put my foot on it. You can see it's pretty sloppy there. And if it's just a side-to-side movement, yeah, I don't think it'd be too bad, because there's a little bit of tolerance there to allow the bucket to kind of have a little bit of slop in it. It's okay to have a little bit, but this is kind of a tilt back and forth type of movement, which kind of gives me an indication that the pins are worn a bit. There's a little wear in those, and if you remember what I said in the previous video, this loader is made in China. The casting is done in China, and a lot of the other parts are from Mexico as well. Granted, this is like an entry-level machine, so you got to accept some cost savings in certain places. But this is, I don't know, I think they could have done better with this. Now that I see this, I thought the loader arms would be a bigger problem with the casting in China, but I mean, they seem to be okay. You don't see any like cracking in the paint along where it mounts to the frame here. That would indicate some stressing and fatigue issues, which we don't see that here. And on the mount itself, looks all good. Let's see here. These upper pins look pretty good. I mean, there's not, in the casting here, it doesn't seem like there's too much play in those. This one doesn't look too bad either. But these front ones here, they got quite a bit of play in them there. And I really want to say that's from wear in the pins there. This mechanism seems okay though, down the bottom mechanism, but just right here it seems very, very like I said, that side-to-side move is not too bad. It's kind of the tilting action that tells you you got a lot of wear going on there. Front axle seems pretty good. I'll climb under here a bit. I don't see any issues down here. Your tie rods, which is a piston cylinder here, looks good. Underneath, you get actually a pretty small drive shaft. You can see that's the drive shaft. That looks all good. I don't really see any leaks in this machine, so that's good as well. This is a Yanmar, turbocharged Yanmar, so Japanese usually do pretty good on their engines. I've heard issues about these getting stuck down. I don't see that becoming an issue in this one unless you bend one of the pedals. I think this notch here would get caught under here and you get stuck going forward or backwards, something like that. Play elsewhere. Some of this stuff is sort of expected play. I don't really see much of an issue back here. The machine looks, for the most part, pretty good. Got some rust going on. I would imagine there's supposed to be some kind of rubber cushion on there. I did that. Rubber cushion on there to keep it from marking that up. But I don't live where it's salty, so that probably got exposed to rainwater or something like that. Box scraper looks good. There's no like stressing in it either. But yeah, let me well, actually I have one more on the outside before I pop the hood. I'll let you see what's going on under there. We got some paint issues going on in here on this plastic. So I guess it's still a hood issue, but you can see, yeah, paint peeling off. And it's actually really thin too, really thin paint. It's kind of a plasticky paint, really kind of cheap. I think on these tractors too, the paint, yeah, you guys can see on the edge here, the paint is infused, or it's actually the color of the plastic, which is green, not the paint over top of it. So that is interesting. I would think that is a cost-saving measure. So that plastic is actually black and not green, like they just put a green coating on it. It feels like it's kind of like a plastic vinyl wrap on it. But yeah, that's interesting. And this machine is exposed to a lot of pressure washing, so that might be a reason why. I don't imagine if somebody's going to pressure wash it, that's the first place they're going to hit when they wash it, going down. This is not solid green either. So let me pop the hood real quick and we can get a better view up there. 1 second. Back under the hood here. Hopefully you guys watched my previous video to get an understanding of what this is supposed to look like. So the first thing I noticed off the back is that the battery is no longer held down by the mechanism that's supposed to hold it down. I'd imagine it's supposed to have some kind of clamp here that holds it down. Clearly that broke, and it's kind of held down by bungee cords now. I'll have to go back and look at the video of what on earth held that before, but something went wrong there that it no longer is seated there, I guess. I think that's what I should say. There should be some kind of clamp over the top of it that holds it down, or at an angle or on the corners to keep the battery from moving. That broke, so that's no good. Next piece, I think if you guys remember right, my biggest gripe with like under here was this stupid mechanism that holds it together. It seems to be doing okay. I mean, it like I said in the video, it functions, but it's just kind of bothersome that they just couldn't put hydraulic struts in here to hold it up. As you can see, this thing's had a pretty bad frontal collision. Maybe that's why the battery holders not work. I do have the loader arm guard. I mean, I do have something to keeping it in case it does depressurize. You can see some wear right here on the plastic from rubbing. And you can see the plastic is in fact black painted green. I don't see too much stress going on under the hood here. I think mainly because instead of like on those other tractors, when you pick it up here, you have a lot of reinforcements up here with the grill and whatnot. Those other littler John Deeres you don't. But you can see this mechanism still functioning okay. Where it connects up though down here there used to be a little clip or something that would help hold that in. I see JB weld right there, which makes me think they tried to fix it, and that's no longer the case here. It does not, it doesn't have a little clip in there, so it sort of just rests inside here now. I think I said something about how chintzy or cheap that was, and you guys can see that it did in fact turn into a problem, and they try to fix it, doesn't work, so now it just hangs there. Up here on the coolant reservoir bottle, there's some kind of issue. They got black electrical tape all over it. This is actually just the drain line. It's not too big of a deal, because I mean I really wouldn't care about that, but as you can see, it is leaking a little bit of coolant. It has poured down the sides, and this hose is just kind of dangling there. So that became an issue at one point, and that's not really in line with where the impact was, so that probably became an issue elsewhere. Moving over here, I don't know if you can see on top of the engine there, right in this some kind of vent case breather. It gets put back into the intake and reburned, but you can see it's developed a little bit of a leak. You can tell by the dirt around the valve cover, where it goes into the valve cover there. Dirt's kind of leaking around there. Also, I noticed the other day that it did have an exhaust leak right here on the turbo. You can see hopefully it's not too hot. Yeah, it's not too bad. Right by this clamp here, if I rub my finger around it, you can see my finger is just black. That tells me that exhaust is leaking right around here, and maybe I can start up here and kind of smoke a little bit. We'll see here. Yeah, hopefully you guys saw that on camera, but there is exhaust leaking right there. That is definitely kind of a factory issue, or like maybe that clamp is loose. It doesn't look loose, but there is exhaust leaking right there. And let's see if it's on the hood here. It might be. I don't see it on the hood really. Yeah, you can see my finger's black, so it's been blowing some exhaust against the hood there. So that's definitely an issue. Don't really see any other exhaust issues. It does look like somebody drove this in the rain with a lot of dirt. Something else I noticed over here is that the dipstick tube for the front axle here to check the oil in the front axle definitely broke off or something like that, because here's the O-ring for it right here. So that's pretty bad. That means stuff is probably leaking in if the oil's leaking out, which it is. So yeah, let's see. The hose guard looks okay. And that's interesting coloring right there. I don't know if you guys see that. The hose is kind of shredded. It looks like it's chemically shredded though, so that's kind of odd. Yeah, let's see, you can look in there's that O-ring again. They pumped a whole bunch of grease in this thing. Something that has been added here, I don't know if you guys remember the previous brush guard on it, which I think this, for the most part, is, but it used to be like this, and this top portion, I don't know about this piece, but you can tell it's a different color. They added this corrugated steel to the front, which I think is a very, very good idea. Based off that grill, it's been punched in. It looks like a ball hitch hit it or something like that. Something metallic, because it's pretty hard to puncture through that unless you're not like paying attention or something. But they added this corrugated steel to protect that. And I think if I was the owner of one of these, I would definitely do that modification as well. That definitely keeps limbs. I mean, it keeps limbs and stuff. You can't really... The other one, you could go right through these gaps here, a little limb or something, go right through that grill and into your radiator. So I definitely like what they did there. Although I don't like they used some kind of odd green to do so. Yeah, up here in the front area, looks pretty good. Got some paint chips right here, and that doesn't really bother. It's not too bothersome. Steps are bent. Something that might be interesting here, I see a lot on box trucks, is like a really, really thick wire rope that kind of dangles down and has like a step like this. It doesn't move at all, but it gives a little bit of flex so it doesn't bend, because you definitely want a step to get into this thing because it's so high. Alright, you guys, let me put this hood back down and I'll sort of recap here. Okay guys, so before I recap here, I want to come up here to the driver's area. I know I previously stated that the driving position is very uncomfortable, which it is. Something I sort of want to show you guys, like the touch points, the steering wheel doesn't look too worn down. It didn't have little texture at all, so it looks good. These plate covers did completely change colored. Now they're like a whitish gray. The print is worn off the blinkers. This knob is held up well. PTO is fine. Throttle is still very stiff, but fine. Key, the sticker that tells you that you can push it in for pre-start, that's pretty much not visible. The twin touch down here, the hydraulics, the twin touch hydraulics, the paint has very much worn off the pedals, which that's, I mean, if John Deere didn't expect that, I don't know what they're thinking, because that's definitely like you're always flipping back and forth. Something's always going to be rubbing against it because you're moving your foot up and down on it. That's to be expected. I think the littler ones have like a rubber boot over them to keep that from happening. Otherwise, this all works well still. Four-wheel drive engages nicely still. Diff lock does as well. Your 3-point still nice and smooth. Your stickers are starting to fade. Cup holder still good. Roll cage not rusting at all. Your joystick, this has developed a lot of, like, you guys can see, well, I didn't mean to do that, but now you can actually see how much slop is in that. A lot of wiggling going on in that. A lot of wiggling going on in that bucket, but it's gotten increasingly harder to find the notches of the hydraulics. Now, if you know, it's very hard to explain to what that means when you haven't ran one. But like there's gates for each zone kind of thing that you put it in there, and sometimes you got to really work to find the gate. Ideally, it should be up, down. It should be like a 4-lane intersection kind of thing. You got one forward and a floating forward. You got one back. You got one right and got one left. Those sometimes are a little difficult to find. I'm not sure why. Maybe just the slop in the joystick. I'm not sure. This plate is faded as well. But alright, you guys, pretty much to sum that up, there are other tractors on my channel, and I think they have a little bit more hours. There's a Kubota and a Coyote on my channel. Of course, they're not this large of a tractor. They're a little bit smaller, but the larger ones are built very similar to the smaller ones. So you guys can kind of compare to see how they've held up. Now, I think the electronics here have held up pretty well compared to the other machines I've had, and the transmission seems to be much better than I think it was the Coyote. The Coyote's transmission didn't hold up very well, but the John Deere's did. The Kubotas did as well. Held up pretty good. And I mean, this is not all the tractors I use get put up on my channel. I don't think, actually I did do a Kubota. I have used a couple other Kubotas that I have not featured on my channel, and their transmission seem to hold up as good as this one. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. If you didn't check the previous video out, there's a review video of this tractor when it was much newer. You guys can see what it's turned into now. Still a really good tractor. I mean, I still don't think I have a reason not to suggest it. It definitely has held up a little bit better than I thought it would. I think the loader probably shows the most wear and tear, but in a commercial setting, which this is used in, that's almost to be expected. Feel sorry for whoever owns it next, but that's probably the biggest issue that bothers me. But other than that, guys, it seems it still works, still runs, still does what it's supposed to. I mean, it's 450 hours, 430 hours, so almost 500 hours worth of work on this thing. It seems we're held up just fine. Alright, guys, thanks for watching. Comment, rate, subscribe. Let me know what you think of this video.